You're listening to the Send It Podcast with Andrew Rawls on World Talk Radio.
Grumman 7 Judah Bravo, then ground, turn right on Bravo, runway 1 left, Bravo, and it'll merge with Alpha at Alpha 3.
So I first wanted to thank everyone for all their support insofar on the podcast. The response has been outstanding. I also wanted to remind listeners that they can pick up some really cool t-shirts and hoodies we had printed for the show. These are tri-blend and extremely comfortable, and they've been selling like hotcakes. Very, very comfortable shirts. A friend of mine came up with the design, and they look fantastic. So you can buy yours today by clicking on any of the links in our podcast episodes. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. Now on to the show. So I think that there is a definite misunderstanding in skydiving as to how sponsorships work. You see shoe deals for some of these megastar NBA players. You see golfers that are sponsored being paid millions of dollars by club manufacturers to wear their hats and play their clubs. But when it comes to skydiving, it's totally different. The margins are so thin on equipment, they're sometimes only 5 or 10%, that when a major manufacturer decides to sponsor an individual or a team, the sponsorship typically comes in the form of discounted gear only. Now, the gear is expensive to begin with, and what that manufacturer may do is say for a canopy, allow the individual or sponsored athlete in exchange for sending them print and promotional materials, allowing to use their videos on their social media pages, and in print publication, may allow the individual to go direct, meaning that they don't have to purchase through a middleman or a dealer. Moreover, they may allow that individual to purchase the item at cost, that is, the cost that the manufacturer would sell that item without any kind of markup to a dealer, with the caveat that they can't sell that equipment to anybody for 2 or 3 years. So there are some exceptions where they'll be given 100% sponsorship, but it's very, very rare. 100% sponsorship may include things like new equipment over a certain period of time, and then they're given money too, but it's not a lot of money, right? If it's a 3 or 4 way team, you may only be looking at $20,000 to $30,000 a year, if that. And then they may throw in things like paying for air travel, paying for hotels and lodging, paying for jumps. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on the team or the individual and how much the manufacturer thinks that they're worth. But you don't see a lot of outside corporations sponsoring skydiving athletes, and I think that that's because the risk is just too high for them. And I've often wondered, even in the UFC, you see corporations that aren't affiliated with combat sports, whether it be Burger King, whether it be a certain kind of beer. You see Reebok coming in and endorsing and even signing, in some cases, fighters to quite a bit of money. But you don't see that in skydiving at all. And again, I think it also goes back to paid promotion and the lack of visibility skydiving has in terms of television and media coverage. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. I know there's been a lot of confusion, and you may see your upper echelon extreme skydiving athletes. They may in some cases make close to 6 figures, but not many of them. And folks that are working for companies that also sponsor athletes in different sports, again, those companies are sponsoring the athlete based on the media and marketing that individual can bring in for that manufacturer. So sports like racing, obviously they have more of a draw because there's television rights and they're shown on TV. They're not going to be paying somebody in skydiving nearly the amount of money they're going to be paying for an athlete that's seen on television and is far more likely to be written about and covered by the news media than a skydiver. And in those cases, they may be paying the athlete millions of dollars a year, but it just doesn't work that way in skydiving at all. I think most of these top teams that you see compete at nationals, the ones that are really successful get a contract for either discounted jumps or a block of jumps and some lodging from some of the top drop zones in the United States, and they agree to come in and do camps and wear their logo. But by and large, there's no money attached to it at all. The skydiving piece is taken care of, but they're still on the hook for paying for things like packing, meals, incidentals, and those kinds of things. And I don't know what all is included from a travel and transportation perspective, but you see that. And then on the equipment front from the manufacturer, again, I would say that only the top 1 or 2% are getting completely brand new free gear from the major equipment manufacturers, and then everybody else is just getting nothing more than some kind of a deal where they can go direct and buy at cost. Which, if you like to jump different vendors' gear and play around with different kinds of equipment, perhaps becoming a sponsored athlete isn't really for you. I mean, if you're on the hook to jump a certain manufacturer of canopies, parachutes, and you want to try different manufacturers who makes perhaps better wingsuit canopies, well, you're on the hook with that first manufacturer, and you can't let them see you do it. So yeah, I wanted to clear this up because I was at a drop zone back several months, and one of the TIs who was taking somebody on a tandem jump said, "Hey, that guy over there, I taught him how to skydive, and now he's a professional skydiver making millions." And that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, these folks, again, that are on elite teams, they're getting their jumps comped by certain drop zones to train there, but they're also having to run camps, and then that's where they make their money, off camps, whether they be indoor tunnel camps, whether they be 4- and 5-way coaching camps. And it's fun, and it allows you to lead, a simple life, but certainly there's nobody that's making millions off of being a professional skydiver. It's just not happening. And anybody saying otherwise just isn't in the know, nor do they know what they're talking about. You'll find in skydiving, if you work in the business, it's really hard and difficult to make the kind of money you need in order to be able to fly and skydive consistently how most people want. You've either got to own your own company, you've got to be a test or jump pilot, and then again, your skydives are going to be mostly work. But if you're some kind of a rigger, you're a packer, you're working at a tunnel, and even if you're a coach or a tandem instructor, you're more often than not going to be making the kind of money that somebody that's working a corporate 8 to 5 job is. And most of your skydives are going to be work. They're not going to be fun jumps. Why? Because this industry doesn't pay enough unless it's the only specialist kind of circumstances to work in it and have enough money to pursue skydiving at the highest of levels on your own nickel and dime. It just doesn't work that way. There's very little outside sponsorship again. And while I'd like to see that change, I think that there's definitely going to have to be televised coverage of the sport, which there's never really been since the inception of sport jumping.
You've just listened to Send It, a skydiving podcast hosted by Andrew Rawls on World Talk Radio. Send It is the #1 skydiving podcast on the planet, bringing listeners up-to-date information on all things sky sports. Be sure to visit senditradio.com to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our amazing bonus content and articles. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review. Until next time, 3, 2, 1. See ya.